Great to welcome Dr. Robert H. Lustig, who has written a really interesting book dealing with the current problems of obesity, chronic disease in the United States, and he talks about it in the book. It's called Fat Chance, Beating the Odds Against Sugar, Processed Food, Obesity, and Disease. He joined us today from out in San Francisco. Doctor, good to talk with you. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me, Doug.
Yeah, it really is. Just reading through your book, and from when you hear in the news and all that, particularly with children, I guess you call it a pandemic, right? With obesity, it's kind of a scary situation.
It's more than just obesity, and it's more than and the pandemic is very real because it's going on in every country, not just the United States. Mm-hmm. This is a problem anywhere the Western diet has been promulgated, and it's not really about obesity. Let me give you an example of why. If you look at obesity prevalence versus diabetes prevalence, country by country, there are countries that are obese without being diabetic, such as Iceland, Mongolia, Micronesia, whereas there are countries that are diabetic without being obese, such as India, Pakistan, and China. India and China have a 12% diabetes prevalence. Wow. We are the fattest nation on the planet, and our prevalence of diabetes is only 9.3%. How come they have more diabetes than we do if they're not fat? This is much bigger than just obesity. Lots of different foods cause obesity. Potato chips and French fries are numbers 1 and 2, but no one's calling for the banning of potato chips and French fries. The reason that there is a problem here is not because of weight gain. The problem here is because our metabolism has been hijacked. It is now. Our bodies aren't working as well as they used to. And the fact that our insulin levels are 4 times higher today than they were 40 years ago is a sign of that metabolic dysfunction. And that occurs whether you're fat or thin.
Yeah, you talk about in the book the diet we have, and with the subsidies, I guess, for farmers for raising corn because of the high fructose corn syrup and all the food. I mean, that's a big part of it, right?
That is a big part of it. Basically, we started subsidizing food in 1933 when we had the very first Farm Bill. And the very first Farm Bill made a lot of sense because we had this thing in 1933 called the Dust Bowl and the Depression. And we had a destitute population that was dying of malnutrition in one part of the country, and we had all the food being grown in another part of the country. And by the time you would put the food on the railroad cars and get it to where the destitute people were, the food would have gone bad, right? It would have been rancid. Right. And so what they did was they learned how to process. They learned how to take the fiber out. They learned how to take the wheat and turn it into, 75-pound bags of flour, so they could put the flour on the railroad cars and ship that, and then bake the stuff up in a different part of the country and solve the calorie problem. And you know what? In 1933, this was absolutely essential. And it was essential all the way through World War II. But then it stopped being essential. And the policy should have changed. But what did we do? We doubled down, and we made it worse. And the reason is because people said, hey, we can make money at this. And so the U.S. government started now subsidizing all of these things, corn, wheat, soy, and sugar. And then in 1971, Richard Nixon, in his war on poverty, it started with Johnson, but Nixon said, make food cheap, because fluctuating food prices cause political unrest. And so he had his agriculture secretary, Earl Butz, go around the country and tell the heartland, row to row, furrow to furrow, get bigger, get out. Very specifically, we're not going to pay you to not grow crops. When I was a kid, back in the 60s, they used to pay farmers not to grow certain crops in order to limit their availability to raise the price. That's how farmers made more money. Now they were being told, we're not going to do that anymore. You're going to increase your productivity, and you're going to make it up on volume. And so what happened? They subsidized corn, wheat, soy, and sugar to get them to overproduce those, to drive prices down to reduce political unrest. Then we had the introduction of high fructose corn syrup in 1975. And then, in 1977, we had the first dietary guidelines, which told us to stop eating fat. Well, when you take the fat out of the food tastes like cardboard. What they do? They added in the sugar. And now we have a full-blown pandemic on our hands.
Yeah.
We have to reverse this.
Yeah, in order to make food cheaper, that for farmers to be able to survive, that's what caused them, in part, to do that, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
So we now have to undo basically 80 years of agricultural, political mistake.
Policy. It's a policy change on top of a behavioral change, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why we need government on board. But of course, government doesn't want to be on board because government is subservient to the industry.
Hey, you look at my generation's parents, even mine. I mean, I'm not a senior citizen yet, but I mean, we grew up eating more healthy food. My mother always said, you can have occasional lunch out at a fast food, but don't do it too often. And then now with the coffee, people have the coffee with all the sugar and all the junk in it. That's a whole other aspect of behavioral issues there, I guess. So in the last 25, 30 years, people are now accustomed to eating that way. It's going to be tough to turn it around, right?
Well, it is going to be tough to turn it around, but it can be done. It can be done. The fact is, we need policies that make that work, and we also need communities that understand the difference. And we also need to educate parents and kids in school as to what the issues are and what's at stake. Right now, they're being bombarded by advertising from food industries telling them, all of these things in the middle of the store are healthy. Right? Mm-hmm. All those health claims they're allowed to put on packaging. Right. Basically, for your audience, if a food makes a health claim, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
That's what you need to know.
So many of these health stores, like Whole Foods, are opening up around, right?
Well, people are understanding there's a problem.
To offset the regular food. But I know in the back of the book you kind of give some, your thoughts on what can be done policy-wise, and maybe give one or two of those. And also, you mentioned, children are facing more obesity than ever because a lot of them just sit around on the computers. They don't exercise. They don't play outside like they used to. That's another problem, right?
Well, that's true. I'm not going to argue the fact that that's true. The question is it cause or effect? Mm-hmm. What we've learned from our research is that when you get insulin down, kids want to move. Right. One of the reasons they sit down at the computer is not because the computer's there, but because their insulin is high. And when we take their insulin, get it down, either by changing their diet or by giving them medications to do so, the energy stays in their blood instead of being shunted to fat cells. And so their muscles have access to it, and they actually want to exercise. So part of the sloth that we see is actually biochemically driven. And, of course, those, the iPads and the iPhones and, all of the electronics certainly make it more conducive for kids to want to sit down and not exercise. But, in fact, their insulin is what makes them want to sit down in the first place. Yeah. So by fixing that, we can actually get kids up and moving much more easily.
And the work you've done, you describe a lot of cases in the book of teenagers that have had health issues. You change their diet a little bit, and maybe some medical procedure has to be done, but it can be done, right?
It can be done, and we can help virtually anybody who walks in our doors. The problem is, for every kid we help, there are 10 more waiting. This is unsustainable. And the whole issue from a money standpoint is unsustainable. Mm-hmm. Think of it this way, Doug. The food industry grosses $1 trillion a year, of which $450 billion is gross profit. That's what they're walking away with, $450 billion each year. Healthcare costs in this country are $2.7 trillion a year, of which 75% is chronic metabolic disease, of which 75% is preventable if we changed our diet. So that means $1.4 trillion a year is going down a rat hole. So we waste triple what they make. Yeah. This is unsustainable.
Yeah, scary.
We can't keep doing this. Something has to give.
Well, the name of the book is called Fat Chance. Great information in there. It'll make you think, and that's part of why you wrote it, I'm sure. Fat Chance, beating the odds against sugar, processed food, obesity, and disease. And we've been talking with Dr. Robert H. Lustig today. And, Doctor, give out a website. People can get more information about you and the book.
Absolutely. We have started a nonprofit to take on the food industry, to take on big food, to reset the argument, to change the conversation, to improve the way food is produced, marketed, and distributed in America to help people instead of hurt them. The website is www.responsiblefoods.org. It's the Institute for Responsible Nutrition. Log on, sign up, keep abreast of what's going on, and add your voice to help move Washington forward.
Great. Doctor, pleasure talking to you. You're doing great work out there, and hopefully we can talk to you again. But thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Doug. Thank you for having me.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or Doug Miles Media.